Hello everyone, I'm Brian, and today we're going to finish this off, hopefully, for part 3, Advaita versus the Vedanta. I don't think I'm saying that right. I feel stupid saying that, kinda. It's like I'm trying so hard. But anyways, this is the question part, the last portion. I hope we have enough time to do it all within one thing. We are going to do it all in one, so let's go ahead and get started.
I understand you have some questions. Yes, thank you.
I'll go first, few clarification questions.
Yes.
And so one of them is that when you said Tatyam Osi is Chandogya Upanishad and Aham Brahmasmi from where?
Brihadaranyaka Upanishad.
Brihadaranyaka.
Brihadaranyaka Upanishad.
So Brihadaranyaka, this is the 6th chapter, some sloka, right?
Chandogya Upanishad 6, in the Chandogya Upanishad 6th chapter, Tattvamasi has been repeated 9 times.
Yeah, I know that one, correct. And the Pragyana Brahma is Taittiriya.
From Aitariya, not Aitariya Upanishad, which is from Rig Veda. What they have done is, they have taken these identity statements where the individual is said to be identical to the cosmic. I am Brahman. So they have taken these identity statements, one from each of the Vedas. One from Rig Veda, one from Samaveda, like that.
Okay, my second question. So if you read Shankaracharya, you have recited several times the same sloka or 6 of his sloka, who am I question, Mono Buddhi Ahankaro Chittani. Can you explain the difference between Mono, Buddhi, Ahankar, Chitta?
Yes. So this is what Advaita Vedanta has done is borrowed the psychology of Sankhya philosophy completely. Psychology, cosmology, all of it from Sankhya. And so Mana, Buddhi, Chitta, Ahankara, they are all part of what may in English in general be called mind. But they have individual functions. They are differentiated by function. So Chitta is memory.
So Chitta is memory.
Memory. So again, Chitta is used in 2 ways. One is in general, memory, and in Vedanta or Sankhya. But in Yoga Sutras, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha.
Right.
It's not cessation of memory. There it means mind. The entire mind is Chitta. So Chitta Vritti is any thought, any modification of the mind. So Chitta, in Sanskrit, this is polysemantic. Each word can have several meanings. So you have to be careful. So Chitta, in this Manobuddhi Chitta Ahankara, when it comes in this set of 4, Chitta means memory. Okay. Otherwise, it might mean the whole thing. Then Ahankara. Ahankara, these are all precisely defined. Ahankara is ego. What does it do? Its function is Abhimanatmika Antakarana Vritti. The appropriating function. In the mind, there is a function of the mind. Whatever is going on, it says I plus that. So there is pain. I am in pain. Pain is just an experience, but where did this I come from? I am in pain. It immediately becomes I am in pain. There is a desire. I want. See, the I is added to it. There is I understand. I do not understand. I remember. Remembering is a function of Chitta. But where does this I come from? This I is the Abhimanatmika, which appropriates everything. It's an integrating function of mind. So it gives the feeling of one integrated individual. Ego. Okay. Then Ahankara. Manas. Sankalpa Vikalpagatmaka, which takes all the information from all the senses, including feelings, emotions. And when it is in the form of multiple options, many thoughts, a jumble of options there, before clarity dawns, that is mind. When clarity dawns, Nishchayatmika Antakaran Vritti, that is called Buddhi. I understand. I don't understand. Is it this? Is it that? Manas. I get it now. Buddhi. So these are the 4.
So when you are quoting the sloka, the Sanskrit part, is it from Vivek Chudamani?
No.
Is there anywhere I can read?
Nirvana Shatakam. This is an independent hymn composed by Shankaracharya. If you look on YouTube, very beautiful singing is there of Nirvana Shatakam. 6 stanzas on Nirvana, composed by Shankaracharya.
Nirvana Shatakam.
Yes.
But when you are giving the explanation of Mono Buddhi Chitta Ahankara, are you using some text or?
Yes. So these are standard definitions. You will find it in many texts when you are introduced in a traditional way to these things. So for example, we are studying it now, Vedanta Sara. Vedanta Sara Sadananda Yogendra. This is a small text on Advaita Vedanta written about 600 years ago, which is used till today to introduce people traditionally, in a traditional way, to Advaita Vedanta. Before you start studying the big texts, before you jump into Upanishads, Gita, Brahma Sutra, this is like a compendium of definitions. Like you asked, before we go into all this, what do you mean by Brahman? What do you mean by Maya? What is Atma? What is Jagat? What is Mana, Buddhi, Chitta, Ahankara? All these terms which you are using, please define. And so how elegantly they are all defined. Brahman, for example, we have to memorize. Vastu Satchidananda Madvayam Brahma, Ajnanadi Sakala Jada Samuha Vastu. In Advaita Vedanta, the reality, Vastu, is Brahman. What is Brahman? Satchidananda Advayam. Existence, consciousness, bliss, non-dual, without a second. Ajnanadi Sakala Jada Samuha. Starting from Maya downwards, everything else, including this entire universe, Avastu, appearance, not real. This is the conclusion of Advaita Vedanta. Now it has to be understood and defended.
Okay, I'll not hold you. I think both Amitabha and Shubroto has question. But Amitabha, if you can ask him the difference between Uttar Mimamsha, Purva Mimamsha, and all those.
First of all,
before we present the questions, let me say a few words. We have a limited time, so the list on the chat and the Q&A, that's really growing. So Mr. Bakshi, please go ahead, and I will skip my part. Maybe I'll just introduce one question, a very specific question to Swamiji, then we'll go to the chat room and Q&A.
Okay, first of all, it has been a spectacularly brilliant lecture. I mean, I'm just read all of these things, but your exposition has been so, how can I put it, profoundly touching that I have really not much to say on those things. So I'll go to a slightly different question, which is, I was a student in Ramakrishna Mission School, so I have a great deal of respect for that. And I always thought that Swami Vivekananda was an advocate of the Advaita Vedanta school. I mean, a Tattamvasi type of thing. But Ramakrishna Mission also does puja and stuff like that. You know, you understand the Ramakrishna side of the background, and also you're not doing Vishnu, you're coming more from a tantric side. Could you tell me how you guys rationalize this and bring this
right together? This brings us to two important points I'd like to mention here, which I should have mentioned earlier. So how does Advaita Vedanta, if Brahman alone is real, what does it consider all this to be? After all, even Advaita Vedanta, we are studying it in Maya, isn't it? This book is not Brahman. This body is not Brahman. Only one reality. Everything else is an appearance.
Okay.
So what Advaita Vedanta does is, unlike all the other systems, it introduces a two-tier system of truth. Ontologically speaking, there is one ultimate truth called Paramarthika Satyam, Brahman. Satchidananda Brahman is the ultimate reality. But at a lower level, a relative level, it is called Vyavaharika Satyam. Probably, though traditional Advaita Pandits will be furious if I say this, Shankaracharya clearly seems to have borrowed this from Nagarjuna, who said these very things 600 years before Shankaracharya. But by borrowing, importing this two-tier level of truth, two kinds of truth, Paramarthika and Vyavaharika, Nagarjuna said that Buddha had taught two kinds of truth, Satyam, Paramarthikam, Satyam cha, Samvrittim cha. So in Buddhist system, two kinds of truth was there. And this Paramarthika is the ultimate reality, is Brahman, and the Vyavaharika, transactional reality. That includes name, form, and transaction, Nama, Rupa, Vyavahara. All this world that you are seeing and what we are doing now, it all comes in the lower level of reality. So, to understand this,
higher level of reality, Brahman. Lower level of reality, I thought it was going to say Maya, but I think it's still going to say that. But regardless, it's all still Brahman. I'm hoping he's going to say that. I don't know why, but that's because of non-duality. There can't be two separate levels in terms of two separate realities, one being Brahman, one being something else, because again, duality means even though there's two levels, it's still all Brahman.
You know, Advaita Vedanta does not actually directly refute Dvaita Vedanta. You know what is an Advaitin's answer to the charges of a dualist? Advaitin will say, we are not dismissing you. You all belong to the lower level of truth called Vyavaharika. We are not saying that Vishnu is not there. We are not saying that you are individuals are not there. We are not saying that the world is not there. But we are saying they are all appearances. There is a deeper truth than all of this, which is Brahman, Nirguna Brahman, Satchidananda Brahman. So if you admit a Vyavaharika level of reality, then at that Vyavaharika level of reality, you can talk and walk and eat and go to office. Why can you not worship God? You can say in Bengali, Bhagavan ki dosh kar le. If we can do all these things, then I can go and earn money, I can go and have fun, I can study and get a job and marry and have children and all of that. Life can go on, ups and downs, good and bad, unpleasant, even Sharga, Narak, heaven and hell and earth, all can go on. Then why can you not worship God? God is also a reality. So that is a transactional level reality. That's why only Ramakrishna Mission? All the traditional Advaitavadins, if you go to Shankara Math, Sringeri, Kanchi, Puri, you will be surprised. Morning till afternoon, only rituals are going on, only bhakti is going on. How do they rationalize? They rationalize because it's at the level of appearance. Ultimately, it is. See, when you have to do something, action is at the level of appearance. Only knowledge can point to the reality. Knowing that you are Brahman, then you have to continuously act. It's not actually illogical. Knowing that the movie is a false.
It's not actually illogical, or is it actually logical?
Ultimately, it is. See, when you have to do something, action is at the level of appearance. Only knowledge can point to the reality. Knowing that you are Brahman, then you have to continuously act. It's not actually illogical. Knowing that the movie is false. Movie is false. It's fiction. Does it mean you have to switch off the movie? No fun then. In fact, knowing that it is not real, King Kong is not real, then you can truly enjoy King Kong. If you think that King Kong is real, then you'll be scared. Those
But I guess the problem with that I don't know what perspective he's trying to show that example, that we're sitting in the theater watching a movie, or that we're in the movie itself observing. While we're in the movie, we're observing the movie, kind of like the bystanders in the movie, like we're one of them. When we see King Kong as we are a bystander, I would say this to be Advaita Vedanta, so non-duality, because you're in the movie. The movie and yourself are one in the movie. We'll just leave it like that for now, for the example. But it's not reality. The reality is the fact that the movie is the film. I don't know how to do duality, but basically, I don't know where I was going. I was trying, because you're part of the movie, that's one. But if you're an audience, like watching in the theater, watching a movie, there's a duality there. You're not in the movie. You know the movie is something separate from you, so you would not be scared of King Kong. I mean, you'd be scared because it's surprises, but when you're older, generally speaking, you don't really fear things because you have a knowledge of understanding if it's false or fake. And whereas children, they don't know what is or isn't real just yet because they have not had a lot of life experiences. Now, when you're an adult, you still get scared because of surprises, like jump scares. So that's not to say that, you watch a movie and you get scared of the movie even though you know it's fake. Yeah, the movie is fake, we understand that. The jump scares, the unexpected, no matter whether it's fake or real, will always scare us. So like, if you ever watch a Jason movie again, you probably won't be scared of watching a Jason movie or any kind of horror movie unless there's a jump scare. But that's not because we don't realize that the movie's fake. It's because it is a surprise, more than the fact that we think that the movie is real, I suppose. So if we, and going back to what it's saying about if we're watching King Kong in the theater, we can clearly see there's a separation between us and King Kong. And if we're, I don't know to go back and touch the part where we're in the movie, because I guess the way I see it, if you're in the movie, it's non-duality because you're all part of the same thing. Whereas if you are an audience and watching the movie, there's a separation, there's duality. You know that the movie is not real. You can see the movie is separate from yourself. Nothing that happens in the movie will affect you. Separate. Whereas if you're in the movie, anything that happens in the movie will affect the person in there, and so there's no separation between what's going on in the movie and what's going to happen to you. Whatever happens in the movie will happen to you in a sense. Whereas if you're watching the movie, a separate thing, there's duality, there's this separation. I hope I was clear on that one. Let's see what he goes.
People who are not afraid in the movie hall of a giant gorilla. You release a real little monkey into the movie hall, they'll all run away screaming. Yeah. Why? What's the difference? The giant gorilla is an aesthetic enjoyment because it is mithya, appearance. Mithya does not mean does not exist. Appears, but is not real. If it appears, it's enough for transaction. I'll repeat that. It's a crucial insight. Appearance is enough for use. If you can experience it, you can enjoy it like your dreams. You can have a good dream, you can have a bad dream. You can be happy in a dream, you can be scared and terrified in a dream, nightmare. Why? Though none of it is real. But to have a nightmare or to have a pleasant dream, it only takes experience. Mithya, Maya can provide you with experience. Cinema can provide you with experience. Dream can provide you with experience without being real. That's the crucial insight of Advaita Vedanta.
But I'll say though, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm going too deep into this into this explanation here, but it's almost to say that the only way you can enjoy yourself is by watching a movie or by having a dream, by going into this false reality. Why can we not enjoy ourselves in real life, in the theater, not watching a movie, having a discussion with the person next to you, having what's the other one? Just going out and about, you know, without having a false reality. There is no need for false reality. Like, how do I say this? There's no need to for us to enjoy company or people or anything like that. We don't need to go watch a movie. We don't need to go watch TV. We don't need to play a game. We've interacted with each other without having we've interacted with each other to have this enjoyment, this experience. So I wonder, then I'm trying to get at is the fact that why do we need the Maya to enjoy ourselves? We don't have to have this false premise. Why can't we have the reality and enjoy the reality? Is reality that bad? But that's what I wonder. It's like why does there need to be a false reality to enjoy ourselves, as far as I'm understanding? But apparently meditation, to once you truly see who you are, you will be eternally bliss. So the reality, as far as I can tell from all the gurus and swamis, is that it's actually eternal bliss. So why? So the creation of Maya itself seems more like a suffering in a sense, because clearly in this world, a lot of things, a lot of Hindu beliefs, how do I say, ways of life is understanding that life is suffering, and in order to escape suffering, we must separate ourselves from our body. Yes, so far I do believe most gurus that I've watched and swamis that I watch have said that understanding that your Turiya, the real you, is not this body, it's not the emotion, it's not the mind, it's something separate from that. When you realize that you're separate from the emotion, the pain, you won't suffer, you'll be bliss. Same thing what Sadhguru was talking about, same thing what Osho was talking about, how they can separate themselves from their body, their mind, their intellect, I think it's intellect, or intelligence, I think. But they can separate themselves from the physical world in a sense. Like, they can see that they're separate from the emotions. If they're suffering emotionally, they can separate themselves from that and no longer suffer from that pain and that suffering. So this makes me conclude that Maya is suffering. But yet he's making it seem like this Maya is entertainment as well. I think he does say both that pain and like good dream and bad dream. So it's both good and bad. But the reality, the real reality, Brahman, is just eternal bliss. So why create a separate Maya? Why create Maya to have both bliss, or well, maybe not bliss, but happiness and suffering? Right? Okay, let's continue. I hope you understand me. I hope I spoke clear enough and not too fast. But I hope you understand what I'm saying, that Brahman, ultimate reality, pure consciousness, is bliss. Maya, which was, some people say Brahman created Maya. Maya is still part of Brahman. Maya is this false reality. We're living in Maya. And Maya contains both suffering and good. Maya is full of suffering, has some good, like he was talking about here, about like, movies, good dreams, bad dreams, good movies, bad movies. So why create Maya if Brahman is ultimate bliss? Why create suffering when there's ultimate bliss? I guess that's the question. Brahman's ultimate bliss created Maya, which has suffering, and now we're in Maya. Is that a legitimate question? Let me know. I think so. I need to write this stuff down. If I ever meet any one of these, well, it would have to be him specifically, because he does study up on this, and Sadhguru would just be a different thing. He didn't really study. He says he didn't study these things, so I don't think this would be an appropriate question for him. I don't know if Osho has studied his books or not. I really want to watch his stuff again.
Then you can have bhakti at that level. So this is the traditional Advaitic approach. Let me just add one more thing. I forgot, because of time constraints, I should have mentioned it. What was Sri Ramakrishna's approach to it? What was Swami Vivekananda's approach? All these systems fought with each other for 600, 700 years. Sri Ramakrishna is Samanvaya avatar, the avatar of harmony. So he says, Jatomat Tatopat. As many faiths or opinions, they are all paths to enlightenment. Which one is real? Sri Ramakrishna says, all of them are correct. He is not speaking from a philosophical angle. He is not even speaking from Advaitic angle. But Advaita will accept Dvaita. Will say, at the dualistic level, you are correct. At the level of Mithya, you are correct. But ultimately, you are Mithya. But practically, you are correct. So Sri Ramakrishna is not even saying that. Sri Ramakrishna is saying there is one ultimate reality, Brahma Satyam. But you can approach in different ways. In Advaitic way, in Dvaita way, Vishishta Dvaita way, through bhakti, through jnana, through meditation, through service. One Swami, Sharbhanandaji, who was head of our Chennai or Madras Math many years ago, he wrote a letter to Swami Turiyananda, one of the disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. Probably, we don't have the original letter. Probably the letter was, what was Sri Ramakrishna's philosophy? Advaita, Vishishtadvaita, Dvaita, which one?
Okay.
So Turiyanandaji wrote a very beautiful letter, which is published in the letters of Swami Turiyananda towards the end of that book. Long letter. At the end, he says, without giving any clear answer, at the end he says, if you press me, tell me one, Sri Ramakrishna, which one is it? If you press me, if you push me to a corner, then I will say, I'll tell you in Bengali and then translate. He writes that, then Sri Ramakrishna's philosophy, Josho kore Bhagavan labh karo. By whatever means possible, realize God. Whether you can think of it Vishnu and devotion to God and going to Vaikuntha, fine. Or as Durga and I am the child, Kali is the mother, I am the child, like Sri Ramakrishna's own attitude. Or like Totapuri taught him, Aham Brahmasmi, that's also fine. In whichever way. And Swami Vivekananda said, an ounce of practice is worth 20 tons of tall talk. So he was very practical that way. One point here, Vivekananda often speaks of the ladder. He accepts all, but says Dvaita, he puts it at the bottom of the ladder. One progresses from the difference between me and God to Vishishta Dvaita, where it's a unity. God is the whole, I am the part. That is Vishishta Dvaita. Two, I and God are one, identity. From difference to unity to identity. Advaita Vedanta, Aham Brahmasmi, a ladder. Now, this will not be acceptable to the dualists. Who wants to be at the bottom of the ladder? Swami Deshanandaji.
Hey, we're the first step, okay? Hey, look, to get to the top, you have to go through us first. Ooh, we're first at something. I'm just joking.
Sri Ramakrishna never did that. Sri Ramakrishna, he would say all of them, he had a very flat approach to, he did not say one after another, generally. Bhuteshanandaji, who was the 12th president of the order, once I still remember, somebody was saying this to him, that Swami Vivekananda has thought of it as a ladder. So Maharaj, so at that time Bhuteshanandaji was 98 years old and hard of hearing. Maharaj, first Dvaita, then Vishishta Dvaita, then Advaita, ladder. Bhuteshanandaji said, he would speak very slowly. Ladder can also be reversed. So what was highest becomes the lowest. That's actually what the Gaudiya Vaishnavas do. If you ask an ISKCON person, Achintya Bhedaved, what do you think about Dvaita? Either he will abuse you straight away, that is nothing, it's false, or more philosophically, it's a very preliminary thing. They have a doctrine of Tanubha, the radiance of the body of the beautiful Krishna, just the radiance of that. The poor Advaitin thinks this is pure consciousness and false unconscious. He could have gone a little further and discovered the blue colored boy with the flute and the peacock feather. So that is the highest. Your Advaita is just a very poor preliminary beginning. You can reverse the ladder. Final point. What was Sri Ramakrishna's perspective and our Ramakrishna mission perspective? Sri Ramakrishna often would quote approvingly, Ramchandra asks Hanuman, what do you think about me? And Hanuman replies, Deha buddhya daso aham. And I think I am this body, Hanuman. I am the servant, thou art my Lord. Jiva buddhya twadangshaka. As the sentient being who is in this birth, Hanuman, but something else earlier, something else later on. I am thy part. Jiva buddhya twadangshaka. You are the whole, I am your part. Atma buddhya tu tvamevaham iti me nishchitamati. As Atman, as Satchidananda, as pure consciousness, you and I are one thing. He's telling Ramchandra, I am you, you are me. Which is correct? Iti me nishchitamati. All are correct. From different perspectives, all are correct. You can be dasa as this individual being, as the sentient being, you are the part of the whole. As Atman, you are the whole. You are one with God. This is our attitude.
So you mentioned,
what
does that one feel into this ladder?
This one is not. This one transcends the ladder. It accepts all of them. That does not even want. You can say Hanuman is making a ladder. Deha buddhya, Jiva buddhya, Atma buddhya. So higher and higher and higher. But he says all are true. They are not to be dismissed.
I had a few questions, but in the interest of time, I'll switch to the chat room and the Q&A. For people who have very specific questions, there is a long list and we have limited time. So please, please.
Do you want to read out the questions? And then
yes, I will read out the questions. So please, if your question is not answered, understand that that wasn't answered in the interest of time. So I'll just select a few questions and present to Swamiji. Okay, the first question, one of the questions that was asked from Parvin Jain, Swamiji, based on the same source, how did these scholars came to different conclusions?
Yes, So based on the same source, same Upanishad, same Bhagavad Gita, and especially same Brahma Sutras, how did they come to such tremendously different conclusions? It is possible. I'll give you two reasons. One is, practically speaking, so when there's one reality, I am Brahman, and Shankaracharya justifies it. The Upanishad says so, Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi. So that is sanctified, or that is supported by the Upanishad. Madhvacharya interprets the same Upanishad, and you can do that. There is a technique of interpretation, and that's provided by a whole different philosophy called Purva Mimamsa. Purva Mimamsa was an entirely different philosophy who concentrated on Vedic hermeneutics. Hermeneutics means techniques of interpreting a text. So it's a modern term. It started when Germans started, analyzing the Bible about 100, 200 years ago. But the Vedic scholars were doing it 5,000 years ago. So how to interpret a text? You cannot ask the author. Author is not there. What does this text mean? It's become a very important field of study in the 20th century with Derrida and everybody else. So how do you interpret? The Purva Mimamsakas gave a system. And you have to, so this sentence means this, you have to show according to that system that this is the meaning of a sentence. There's a very clear and subtle way of finding out meaning of text. But still, one can manipulate that to produce different results. Madhvacharya uses Purva Mimamsa hermeneutics to show Tattvamasi, that thou art. Using grammar and Mimamsa techniques, he shows that thou art is not the meaning. Tattvamasi means Tasya Tvamasi or Tad Adhina Tvamasi. Thou art subservient to that. In Sanskrit grammar, you can derive that way also. Tattvamasi means Tad Adhina Tvamasi. Thou art subservient to that. That is Vishnu. Thou are the Jiva. You are subservient to that. That is Swatantra, you are Paratantra. Independent, you are dependent. You can do that. How will you dispute? Grammatically, you can defend it.
Yes. And that's why you have to kind of be precise. But even then, as language changed through time, there were probably precise in those texts, but as language changed through time, it just became so interpretive. And that's why it's kind of hard for me to believe things in the past, is because and issues with translations as well, because he was talking about, I believe earlier in this video, about, I think it was a German guy who had either the Upanishads, oh good lord, one of the books translated from Hindi to another language to German. That's a big problem. Having it been translated to many languages, the person who's translating could have their own biases, or in terms of how they interpret the language. And then whenever you have it translated again, sometimes some languages don't have words for I'm sure there are some words that are in English, not in Hindi, and some words that are in Hindi and not in English. And when you try to translate that, it becomes a problem. Sometimes a translator will not translate it and just put it in because there's no direct translation. But then there are also people who will translate it to the best that they can with what's going on currently in the world. So saying something that's cool, back in the 90s, that means like really awesome. And maybe in the future, cool doesn't mean awesome anymore. It just means temperature. Like it's nice and cool. Alright, well, yeah, just nice and cool. Or maybe in the future, cool means some derogatory term in the future. And then when you read it, it's like, oh my gosh, they were evil back then. They said the C word that I can't say anymore. COOL. and that becomes problematic with so many different translations. So a direct translation would be the best because there's less error in it, but having the original text and hopefully understanding the context of the time especially would definitely not corrupt the original meaning of the text. And that's kind of, again, my problem with a lot of religions as well, their old books, because sometimes it does happen quite a bit where they read a sentence and you can get many different religious people who believe in that religion to interpret it different ways because it's not necessarily specific. But at the same time, I think about, I'm sorry I'm talking so much, but I also think about the founding fathers of America, where they wrote the Ten Commandments. No, they wrote the oh god, I can't remember what it's called anymore. The amendments, 10 amendments. Anyways, but they left those things kind of open-ended because they know that the world's going to change, so it cannot be written in stone. It cannot be unchangeable because they can't predict the future. So laws has to change with time, and the problem with that is that it can be interpreted like sometimes there's lawyers nowadays interpreting how they think the founding fathers meant to write this law, or how this is meant to be like the Second Amendment pretty much is like, it's like, oh, right to bear arms, what does that mean? A regulated militia. Well, what does that mean? What's a regulated militia? What do they mean by regulated militia? Does that mean people have right to bear arms, or does that mean that people, when they get turned into a militia, then can bear arms? So leaving it open-ended leaves it to interpretation, but allows it to adjust according to time. But leaving it rock solid that there's no changing makes it very stringent, that it cannot adapt as time changes. As society change, it is so rigid that it will be thrown out. Some people call the forefathers brilliant for that, and I do think so, but at the same time, my gosh, man, it's just so, I don't know, it's hard to be, neither one is right, neither one is wrong in my books. It has to adapt through time, but I wish it would have specific too.
So using grammar and Mimamsa techniques, and also another ways, there are in the Upanishads you will find dualistic statements. Dva suparna sayuja sakhaya. In the same tree there are two birds. So ultimately it will be shown the lower bird merges into the higher bird, and Shankaracharya will say that is the truth. The higher bird is one, and the lower bird is the appearance. Jiva is an appearance. There actually you are Brahman. But Madhvacharya will catch the first one. Dva suparna, two birds. See, two, not one. So duality. In this way, one can play up certain texts and play down. But it just means in the Upanishads, there are dualistic statements, there are Vishishtadvaitic statements, and there are non-dualistic statements. This is what Vivekananda said and Sri Ramakrishna said. All these bhavas are there. Now, how is it possible? How is the same Upanishad talking in different ways? Because that ultimate reality is actually beyond dualism and non-dualism. It is that old Indian story of the elephant which 5 blind men touched. One said it was a pipe who touched the trunk. One said it was like a rope who touched the tail. One said it was like a fan who touched the ear. One said it was like a pillar who touched the big foot of the elephant, leg of the elephant. So, which is true? They're all true, but they're all partial truths. Or Sri Ramakrishna's beautiful example of the chameleon. Somebody said, I know it is red. Another said, no, it is yellow. Another said, it is green. And they began to quarrel. Some said it is colorless. They began to quarrel. But there's a man who stays under the tree who said, you are all right. Sometimes it is red, sometimes it is yellow, sometimes it's green. The ultimate reality is beyond duality and non-duality. Therefore, in our attempts to describe it, if it is infinite, beyond language, beyond conception, when you bring it into the realm of language, when you bring it into the realm of conception and ascribe descriptions to it, you will have multiple descriptions. This was Sri Ramakrishna's tremendous breakthrough. I think we are only living in just the beginning of that work. I would like to mention a very brilliant young monastic scholar, Swami Medhananda, Ayan Maharaj, who's written a book, Infinite Paths to Infinite Reality. Sri Ramakrishna is saying, Tini Ananto Pathu Ananto. The Infinite Paths to Infinite Reality, Oxford University Press. It has created a big sensation in the academic world. I found it in the offices of at least 3 professors at Harvard University last year. We are studying it. Support, opposition, whatever it has created. In Bengali, we say Aloron. Infinite Paths to Infinite Reality. talking about not Advaita, but Sri Ramakrishna's unique perspective.
Thank you.
Next question is posed by Amrita Kangbe. The Bhagavad Gita is based on the framework of Advaita Vedanta. How then is Bhakti Yoga also one of the paths to realize the ultimate as taught in the Shruti?
Right. So Bhagavad Gita would be Smriti, not technically not Shruti. Bhagavad Gita is based on Advaita Vedanta, that only an Advaitin would say. So I'm in sympathy. I'm in sympathy with her because I'm also an Advaita. My heart is with Advaita. You say, why with Advaita? Why not with Dvaita? There's certain reasons. Our order is based on Advaita. Our sannyasa is also, we are part of Shankaracharya's 10 orders of monks, and all our sannyasa mantras are taken from the Advaitic perspective. Ma Sharoda said, তোমাদের গুরু বাবা তোমাদের গুরু ছিলেন অদ্বৈত আমি দৃঢ়ভাবে বলতে পারি আমি নিশ্চিতভাবে বলতে পারি তোমরাও অদ্বৈতবাদী. She said to the monks, your guru Sri Ramakrishna was Advaita. So I can say with all clarity, with all emphasis, you are non-dualists, you are Advaitins. So we are Advaitins. But so from an Advaitic perspective, where is Bhakti Yoga? Very easy. Advaita perspective, by knowledge alone, you can realize that you are Brahman. What is the role of bhakti? It will help. It will help. Devotion to God helps. Meditation on God helps. Nishkama karma helps. All those are helping, supporting, but none of them will take you to realization, according to Advaita Vedanta. Only the realization, Aham Brahmasmi, will take you there. And Shankaracharya has shown how the Bhagavad Gita ultimately culminates in that.
Next question is from Nitin Kotak. The definition of Atma is given in Mantra 7 of Mandukya Upanishad.
Yes.
Is there also another definition of Atma in Vedanta, sir?
Yes,
Vedanta, sir.
Multiple definitions are there. Remember, Vedanta is not an original text. It's based on these Upanishads. The original texts are the Upanishads. So definitions, you must mine them for definitions. So famous definition of the Atman or Brahman, same thing. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. This is from Taittiriya Upanishad 2.1. Brahmandavalli. Atman or Brahman. Brahman is consciousness, existence, infinity. Infinite existence and consciousness is Brahman. If you look, I have got this talk, the definition of God, which actually means definition of Brahman. So whole talk is there. What is just this one sentence? Infinite existence, consciousness is Brahman.
So I guess I know what I'm doing next. I do have that saved up. I definitely need to watch that one then, because I definitely want to know more of exactly what Brahman is. So far, the basic understanding that I have of it is that everything is Brahman. Maya is Brahman, Atman is Brahman, Jivatman is Brahman, Ishvara is Brahman, the rock is Brahman, the pen, the infamous pen is Brahman. I am Brahman, you are Brahman. There is no separation of anything outside of Brahman. And if I understand that, I want to make sure I understood that correctly. So I definitely got to watch that one next.
So what does this mean? Look it up, you'll find it very interesting. So there is a difference between two kinds of definitions. Swarupa Lakshana, Tatastha Lakshana. Incidental definition and essential definition. Incidental, I will not explain, there's no time. I'll give an example of incidental definition. So that's based on Taittiriya Upanishad. In Brahma Sutras, Brahman is defined as Janmadhyasya Yataha, the creation, etc. of the world from which, that is Brahman. So, Yasmat Asya Jagata Janma Sthiti Bhanga Tad Brahma. Brahman is that from which the universe originates, in which the universe exists, and into which the universe disappears. This is called secondary or incidental description of Brahman, and definition of Brahman. The real definition of Brahman, what is the nature of Brahman, is Satchidananda Brahma, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, Anandam Brahma. These are Swarupa Lakshana. Swarupa Lakshana means what is Brahman actually. There are multiple definitions available across the Upanishads.
There is one question for Sudipta. The German philosopher Nietzsche also speaks about this world as an appearance. You mentioned that Schopenhauer, you mentioned the same thing about Schopenhauer. Any comments on Nietzsche?
I'd rather not. Nietzsche is a difficult kettle of fish. Schopenhauer is very clear, very lucid. Remember, Schopenhauer had a great influence on Nietzsche. Nietzsche writes a lot about Schopenhauer. I mean, I was greatly influenced. He read Schopenhauer thoroughly. He was greatly influenced by Schopenhauer. I have met people who are so deeply influenced by Nietzsche that if I criticize Nietzsche, they will feel hurt. Some of them are here in this very discussion itself. So I don't want to say anything. I'm not a Nietzsche scholar. I've tried to read. At some places, he has sharply criticized Indian philosophy, including Vedanta. Remember, in this, he follows Hegel. Hegel had said that there is no philosophy in India or China. So he was very dismissive. That was a sort of style in European thought at that time. Kant, I don't know if he said anything, but Hegel was very dismissive. Nietzsche was very dismissive. Schopenhauer was all praise. It was like in his classic World as Will and Representation, he says at the beginning, what I am going to say in these volumes, the book has 4 volumes, what I am going to say in these volumes was best known to the ancient Indians. They called it Maya. So he's saying that this is entirely based on Vedantic thought. So there was this difference of opinion. There's this very well-known philosopher, Slavoj Žižek. If you, those who follow modern philosophy, he's very radical. So he came to New York a couple of years ago. I met him in the New York Public Library, went to 2 of his lectures. So I asked him that Hegel was so critical of Indian philosophy. And Žižek, who is one of the world's leading experts on Hegel today, right now, he said, he has a very thick Slovenian accent. He's Slovenian, I think. He said, oh, he read only secondary sources. He said Hegel read only secondary sources. He did not know much about Indian philosophy. So he said that should not be taken seriously. Žižek himself.
Next question is from Shushmita. In Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna mentions in many slokas like chapter 10, verse 2, neither the hosts of demigods nor the great sages know my origin, for in every respect I am the source of the demigods and the sages. Who is this I, Sri Krishna himself, or he is referring to the Brahman? What is applied here, Advaita versus Dvaita?
Yes. So both Advaita and Dvaita would say Sri Krishna is referring to himself as Brahman here. When Sri Krishna says I, mostly in the Bhagavad Gita, he is referring to himself as God because he is the incarnation of God. God is Saguna Brahman in Advaita Vedanta. And incarnation, avatar is incarnation of Saguna Brahman. What would Advaita say about this? As I said, all of this, Advaita has no objection to all of this, except that footnote, the fine print. The fine print is we accept all of it with the caveat that they are all false.
Ouch. I mean, it doesn't necessarily contradict what he said earlier. He said, yes, you're technically true on your level, but in reality, we're the truth. Ouch. We accept everything, but just know that you're false. Ow.
At the level of transactional reality, Vyavaharika Satya. So they're willing to go to as far as saying Advaita Vedanta is also false. It is at the level of Vyavaharika Satya, you have to take it and you have to, by using this, you have to go to the ultimate reality. So Bhagavan, Avatar, all of them are accepted with due respect, and all the rituals, all the practices, devotion, everything has to be done. If you do not do it, you are Bhranta, because you will never reach the Advaitic truth also. One has to go through this path and ultimately reach that. If you stop at this, you are a dualist. But both accept in different ways, Bhagavan and Avatar.
Next question is from Kedar Nafare. Kedar, you can present the question to Swamiji. I'll put you live. Go ahead, Kedar. Hello?
You will have to unmute yourself.
Kedar?
Can I read the question? Is it?
Yeah, I can. If Kedar Nafare, I will. It's answer live. We can here. Let's see. Answer live.
I can't see the question.
You should be able to see the question right here, but in the interest of time, I'm skipping this question. So it's. I can find it now. It was a long question. I thought I'd ask him to present the question, but at the same time, we are running out of time. So here it is. When texts like Ishok Upanishad says, Yatsu Sarvani Bhutani Attamya. Right. My excuse my Sanskrit. So how does Dvaita Vedanta actually? He quotes the whole sloka, and then his question is, how does that Dvaita Vedanta have any grounds to stand upon as an interpretation of Upanishads?
I am entirely in I am entirely in sympathy with you, but don't underestimate the cleverness of Sanskrit Pandits. So they can find see the Tattvamasi itself, such a direct saying, Tattvamasi, that thou art. That can be interpreted directly as that thou art, or Tasya Tvamasi, you belong to that, you are a part of that, or Tadadhina Tvamasi, you are subservient to that. So this Upanishad, what it says, many identity statements like this are found, but they can all be interpreted in different ways. For example, even something as direct as Aham Brahmasmi. So what would, I don't know how the Dvaita Vedanta interprets it, but a Purva Mimamsaka, who is also a dualist of a kind, Aham Brahmasmi, he will say, does not mean that you are actually Brahman. It means you should meditate on yourself as Brahman. Then you will feel encouraged to perform the Vedic sacrifices, which is the point which the Purva Mimamsaka is concerned with. So you should meditate on your identity with Brahman. You should feel that I am Brahman. It's a kind of visualization, affirmation, but not truth. You are not Brahman actually. Don't fall into that kind of error. So it can be done.
A short question from somebody who wants to remain anonymous. Is it possible to attain mukti in this life following Dvaita?
Certainly. I will say. Advaitin will say, no, come to my camp. Dvaitin will say, of course, come, I will give you mukti. No, it is possible. I'll just tell you what Sri Ramakrishna said. Mat Pat. Each of these is an opinion or a particular path to enlightenment. Then he said, Mat Kichunai. These particular paths are not significant. Then he said, Tabe ekta ke dhore thakte hai. You must hold on to one sincerely. See how simple. These are all paths to enlightenment, to realization. Which a particular path is not important. What is important is to hold on to something. He does not say that, no, give up all these paths, now go on your own path. This is a danger in America. Everybody wants to be a rebel. So if something is traditional, I will dispense with that and start out on my own. In Rutgers University, I attended an interfaith conference once a few years ago. So one of the questions, a student in the question and audience. So the panel, they were Christian ministers, rabbi. I was there. One student said, so I'm interested in all the religions because I have this project of I'm starting a religion. So he's starting a religion, new religion he's starting. So that's why he wants to get information from all the religions.
Is that oh crap, what is that called? A Pastafarian. Is that the religion he's starting? Because I was thinking about joining it some time ago.
No, don't. The traditional paths are more than enough. There's enormous variety there, and they're all proven paths. People have attained. In Dvaita Vedanta also, so many great saints have been produced among the followers of Madhvacharya, among the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
But wait, did he not say that that there's no that there's not necessarily a one wrong path, that there are, just pick a path and really hold on to it? Oh well, that's Krishna, I believe that's what he said. Said that, is it Krishna? Ramna Krishna? I'm terrible with names. But it doesn't matter which path. It's not the path that matters. It's just a matter of holding on to that path, really genuinely, truly believing in it, because all path leads to enlightenment or to God. But it's kind of, well, I don't know, is there? No, I guess there's not. I was thinking, like, does Hindu have like 330 million different paths? Considering that there's 330 million gods, and each god, I believe, is a path, maybe, potentially? I'm not sure.
Down till today, very great saints have been produced. So why not? You can definitely attain mukti through Dvaita Vedanta, but through Advaita also.
There is a question from an anonymous attendee. In Christianity, they seem to distinguish between the soul and the spirit. It is between the natural and supernatural dimensions of the inner immaterial aspect of our being. How is it different from the Hindu philosophy, or it is the same?
In fact, in Hindu philosophy, they do distinguish between the soul and the spirit. Spirit would be Atman, the soul would be the Sukshma Sharira. So why? When you say that person is a good soul. Good soul, there's goodness, badness, characteristics, personality characteristics, they are all in the mind. They're the characteristics of the subtle body. They're the impressions, the samskaras in the subtle body. So that is the mind itself, subtle body. And when you say immortal soul, you're referring to the Atman. So the distinction between soul and spirit, not usually made in Western thought, whether Christian or modern Western thought, but in Indian thought very clearly. Subtle body and Atma are never the same.
Here is a short question from Gautam Bose.
We'll take this question and then we'll bring it to a close. It's already, we have gone well over time. So we'll take this question and bring it to a close.
Okay. Thank you, Swamiji. Does Bhagavad Gita support Advaita Vedanta?
Yes and no, depending on whom you ask. If you ask me, certainly. Bhagavad Gita is teaching us Advaita Vedanta. And so one of the courses I did last year at Harvard University, you'll be surprised to know, full courses are done at Harvard University. In one term, there was a full course on Bhagavad Gita with the commentary of Madhusudan Saraswati called Gudhartha Deepika. So we studied the whole of the Gita as much as possible. And so that is an Advaitic commentary, non-dualistic commentary by Madhusudan Saraswati, who was himself a great bhakta also. He was a great devotee of Krishna, but also Advaita, a very staunch non-dualist. So if you follow that commentary, you will see how clearly he brings out, the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. They are all about Tvam, you, thou. The next 6 chapters from 7 to 12 are about that, God. So they are about bhakti. And the last 6 chapters are about Tat Tvamasi, brings it together as thou art that. He tries to show that way. So Bhagavad Gita commentaries, multiple commentaries are there which show that Bhagavad Gita teaches Advaita Vedanta. But if you go to Ramanujacharya's commentary, he clearly shows that it teaches Vishishta Advaita Vedanta. If you go to Madhvacharya's commentary, he clearly shows that it teaches Dvaita Vedanta. What should you do? Whatever your path is, Dvaita or Advaita, especially I find a lot of very interesting things from Ramanuja's commentary. I have not read Madhva's commentary. Beautiful. If you practice bhakti, I'm practicing bhakti towards Sri Ramakrishna. But many beautiful insights about bhakti can be found from Ramanuja's commentary, which cannot be found from Shankara's commentary. So I am happy to take the help of all these approaches. I think that would be Sri Ramakrishna's perspective.
Swamiji, if you have just time for one short question, and that question has been asked twice. It's from Neela Saxena. So Sankara was indeed Prachanna Buddha, since the 2 truths are borrowed from Nagarjuna. Do you agree? No,
I don't agree. The Dvaitavadins, actually this Madhva and his followers, they charge Shankara with being a crypto-Buddhist, Prachanna Buddha. They say that you are Mayavadins or Mithyavadins. you teach a false doctrine. Why? Advaitins say, no, we are not Mayavadins, we are Brahmavadins. We say we are teaching Brahman. The Dvaitins say that Vayamapi Brahmavadina. We are also Brahmavadins. We teach Kovishesha. What is your speciality? Your speciality is Maya. And according to you, Maya is Mithya. So you are Mithyavadins. You are actually Buddhists in disguise. Prachanna Buddha. This is the charge they make against non-dualists. Because it's very close to certain schools of Buddhism, especially Yogachara and Shunyavada. Many similarities are there with Nagarjuna. But is it the same thing? No, it cannot be. because Advaita Vedanta borrows heavily from all traditions. Your basic concept of pure consciousness is entirely taken from Sankhya philosophy. Your entire cosmology, your entire psychology, totally borrowed from Sankhya philosophy. The way you argue, the logic is taken from Nyaya. Madhusudan Saraswati borrows heavily from Navya Nyaya, which is a dualistic system, but the logical part is taken. The system of logic is taken. Meditation is borrowed. Advaitins say, Etena yoga pratyukta. We are discarding yoga, but taking the meditation techniques of yoga, Patanjali yoga. So they are borrowed from yoga, from Sankhya, from Nyaya, and of course heavily from Purva Mimamsaka, the techniques of interpreting Upanishads. Then putting it all together, on top of that you put Brahman and Maya and put a stamp, Advaita Vedanta. But inside, if you open it up, made in China. So all the other, the parts and the components, they have come from many philosophies, including Buddhism. And there's no harm in that. The way of debating in India was when you closely debate with another system. Remember, no system is true or false entirely. There is great truth in every system. So when you closely debate, you begin to learn from that system. Hundreds of years, when the Advaitins and the Nayayikas, they learned Buddhism in order to cut down Buddhism, but they also learned from Buddhism. And some of the DNA of Buddhism comes into the Hindu systems. Some of the DNA of the Nyaya goes into the Buddhist systems. There's a wonderful interplay. So Advaita Vedanta definitely has Buddhist DNA. I can see the angry look of many Pandits who will deny this strongly. But it has DNA of Nyaya, it has DNA of Purva Mimamsa, it has DNA from Sankhya, very heavily so. That does not make that does not mean Shankara is a Sankhyan, Shankara is a Nyayika. No, he strongly refutes those systems. But he takes help from the insights. Similarly, it's not that Shankara is a Buddhist, nor are we Buddhists, but techniques have been borrowed from Buddhism. Terminology, logical systems, insights have been borrowed from Buddhism, no doubt.
We ran out of time. All good things must come to an end. So with that, I would like to thank Swamiji for disseminating such knowledge to all of us, to the attendees. And I'll also thank the attendees for attending such a good session. And we would be looking forward to many more sessions like this from Swamiji. Thank you very much all again. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I had a wonderful session. I pray to the Lord to bless all of us. This is the time of Durga Puja. Ananda Mandir, you're going to celebrate Durga Puja very soon. I pray to the Divine Mother to bless all of us, to protect all of us. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay. Alright, so I didn't really say too much at the end there, because that's all that stuff was still way way deeper into Hinduism than I have delved into. I think I understand some of the baser understanding understanding of Hinduism. I'm still trying to get through how do I say this? I was reading some of the comments of the part 1 and 2 of this. I think there may be some confusion in what I'm saying, but I'm glad. I think I read all the comments. There's been a lot of comments, and I really like that. And I hope to do an answering comments part 2, and hope to be able to get through all those. So I really want to focus on all those and clarify a lot of maybe the confusion, and maybe to make counter arguments, and to maybe clarify a lot of potential clarify a lot of misunderstanding, I guess. Not anything in a bad way. It's just like may have not clearly said my position very well. So and that's completely understandable. I talk too fast sometimes. I need to slow down, but I'm trying to get through my thoughts really quickly and not eat up too much time. So I'm hoping after this comes out, I'll probably do a few more reacts, and then after this has been out for about a day or 2, then I will answer questions on these 3 videos. So ask away, I guess. Anyways, that's my reaction to part 3 of Advaita versus the Dvaita Vedanta Swami Sarvapriyananda. If you like my content, please consider subscribing. Thumbs up, thumbs down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid.